So Trump brought all of his fucking moron cronies here. Well, except for J.D. Vance. But he's got Marco Polo Rubio and Pete Hegseth and Stephen Miller and Scott Besson and a few other these morons. And he's just going to... Greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Thursday, May 14th. This video is going up tomorrow at 2 p.m., I believe. No, I'm skipping today. Yeah, tomorrow. No, I got one going up tomorrow morning. So this one's not going up till Saturday at 2. So I'm way ahead of the game here. But I want to capture this. Okay, I didn't get any of that. That's not even a language. I think I should fucking...
Well, President Xi, I want to thank you very much. First of all, that was an honor like few have ever seen before. And I think I was particularly impressed by those children. They were happy. They were beautiful.
Happy and beautiful children over there. That's what China's known for.
The military is obvious. It couldn't be better, but those children were amazing, and they represent so much. And I know they
Speaking from a guy who's gone to Epstein Island a bunch of times, he knows about children.
represent so much to you. You and I have known each other now for a long time. In fact, the longest relationship of our two countries that any president has had. And that's, to me, an honor. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you, and you would call me.
And we call each other. We talk and same with him. You're kind of like my bestie.
Whenever we had a problem, people don't know. Whenever we had a problem, we worked it out very quickly. And we're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody. You're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth.
He always says the truth. And you're the greatest leader ever. And like I always say that. And people are like, no, Trump, don't say that. I don't like it when you say that. And I say, I'm going to say it anyway because I got to say the truth. And the truth is, you're one whale of a guy.
And I just want to say, on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, I guess the best in the world.
I guess the best in the world. I don't know if you guys agree with that because, you know, you're China and you guys kind of think you do. But we do.
Amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them. We asked the top.
You know, I brought all my ass kissers to watch me kiss your ass.
30 in the world, every single one of them said yes. And I didn't want the second or the third in the company. I wanted only the top. And they're here today to pay respects to you and to China. And they look forward to trade and doing business. And it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf. So I really look very much forward to our discussion. It's a big discussion. There are those that say this is maybe the biggest summit ever.
There's those like me, you know, like I'm saying it right now. I don't know who else is saying it. Biggest summit in the history of summits. This is it. And I don't know if people are saying that because, you know, this is the end of world type shit. It's going to be discussed.
I don't remember anything like it. I can say in the United States, people aren't talking about anything else.
They are. They are not talking. I mean, I've not. Everybody's walking around going, China summit, China summit. What the fuck are you talking? I barely even know what's happening, right? I thought it was here. I didn't know it was going to China. And I cover this stuff every day. So people have a lot more to talk about. When I go on Twitter, they're talking about a lot more than this. The news was talking a little bit about this because China wants him to soften his position on Taiwan. Trump wants help with the Strait of Hormuz. Some kind of deal might be reached. Who the fuck knows? Who cares? That's about the you know, but his ass kissing here.
But it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be your friend. And the relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
And it's been so great. You know, like when I slapped you guys with that big tariff and you didn't like it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Press.
Thank you, Press.
Thank you, Press.
Thank you.
So that was pretty gay. All right. I got stung by something on my hand. I was moving a kayak and there was something in the handle. I think it was wasp was building a nest. I went by to look at it and I didn't see a wasp nest. There's some spider eggs that had been laid there. There's no spiders though. Whoever bit me in the hand is fucking It's not great. Like it hurts, like more than a regular wasp would, but not really that much. But it's going to start itching. They start itching after a while. Just thought I'd tell you what's going on with my. That's what I'm talking about. Like I'm more concerned about that than I am about this China thing. Look at this sad sack motherfucker. And they're covering this thing. CNN and MSNBC are covering this like Trump is like a real guy. Like he's not a real guy anymore. We've been through this with Biden and years before with Reagan. He's senile. You're pretending like this guy's like fucking coherent and he can make decisions, and he just certainly can't. Anyway, so there's that. Okay, so then this just happened too. Same day. This is still Thursday.
President Trump and China's President Xi are attending a state banquet in Beijing after the first day of their bilateral talks. Now, a White House official described it as a good meeting and said the two discussed Iran, trade, and energy. But beyond the pomp and circumstance, tensions are growing over Taiwan. Chinese state media reporting that Xi warned Trump that Taiwan, the democratic self-governing island that Beijing views as part of its territory, is, quote, the most important issue in China-U.S. relations and could create a very dangerous situation if mishandled. Some observers viewing that as a threat. CNN's Will Ripley is live this morning in
What do you got, Will Ripley?
Taipei, Taiwan. It seems like this island, with China has threatened to take by force, is really emerging for China as a key issue here of the summit. Meanwhile, it's sort of the tale of two straits. Meanwhile, you've got the Strait of Hormuz also lingering there, with the president wanting China to help get that open.
Yeah, it's interesting, Sarah, because the officials here in Taipei were sort of expecting this kind of language from Xi Jinping. It didn't come as a surprise that it was the first thing that Chinese state media reported, this comment basically saying that if the U.S. and China mishandled the issue of Taiwan, it could lead to a military conflict. We've heard that sort of thing from Beijing repeatedly over the years. It is noteworthy, but not surprising, that that was the first line of information that they chose to leak to the Xinhua news agency. I want to read you
All right, so there's that. Well, let me see what he says here.
a little bit more of the quote that was reported by Chinese state media from Xi Jinping. He said, quote, Taiwan independence and cross-strait peace are as irreconcilable as fire and water. Safeguarding peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait is the biggest common denominator between China and the U.S. And because they were expecting that kind of language here in Taipei, they're...
All right, so that is whatever it is, right? But like World War III is just there. Like it's just like a. I remember there was some thing. I think it was a TV show or something. Like maybe it was a bunch of short little whatever it was. I think at least one of them was on Vietnam. I was watching one of them with my brother. It was in Vietnam, and they were in like a bar or a whorehouse or something. Something my brother said he frequented quite often. And there was some Viet Cong in the bar with Americans, and they drew, they both pulled out their weapons. Like it was like, 5 guys with 5 guys. And there was a bottle, like a beer bottle, and it rolled off the table, and it crashed when it hit the ground, and everyone started pulling the triggers. And my brother said, yeah, that kind of thing happens all the time. Where they thought someone else had shot, so they just all killed each other, right? Because it was all point blank range kind of thing. So this is what we're looking at now in terms of World War III. Just like some little small little thing that ignites the whole situation. Anyways, so there's that. Okay, greetings, brothers. Not greetings. It's I've already started this video. Today's Friday, May 15th. And this video is going up tomorrow. I believe at 9 p.m. if my calculations are correct. Went to the doctor yesterday. Another fucking story. I got all these things. I don't know if it's just people are just getting weirder, but I'll get to all that in a bit. But I was sitting in the waiting room, and when I do, I scroll through Twitter, and holy shit, are there a ton of memes about that person, Elliot Page, starring in The Odyssey, which I'll show you, and I have more to say about that. And then there's Trump memes about how he just fucking got on his knees and serviced Xi Jinping. Is that his name? Oh fuck, who knows? The guy who runs China. So but meanwhile, this fucking happened, and this came up.
The objective of this mission is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities and of their naval capabilities.
Hi again, everybody. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. That happened moments before we came on the air, or while we were on the air. We took it live, and we largely viewed Marco Rubio as the most trustworthy messenger in that moment about why we were in Iran. Not everybody said the same thing, but that's what Marco Rubio said back in March. Marco Rubio, of course, is Donald Trump's Secretary of State. He's also his national security advisor, and he could not have been more clear in his public statements. Quote, "The objective of this mission, the war in Iran, is the destruction of Iran's ballistic missile capabilities," end quote. Well, now, as Donald Trump ramps up his attacks on the free press, on journalists and journalism, accusing them of, quote, virtual treason, it's a quote from Donald Trump, for reporting on the war, yet another one of his stated reasons for starting this deeply unpopular war of choice with Iran officially bites the dust, is no more. Brand new reporting from multiple outlets reveals that Iran's military is far from crippled. After weeks of war, the deaths of 13 U.S. service members, U.S. bases across the Middle East rendered, quote, all but uninhabitable. According to the New York Times, not to mention a devastating blow to U.S. prestige and standing around the world, U.S. intelligence shows that barely a dent has been made in the Iranian regime's capacity to wage war. A U.S. official with knowledge of recent intelligence assessments confirms reporting first released by the New York Times, then the Washington Post, to our colleague David Rode, that, quote, about 70% of Iran's mobile missile launchers remain viable throughout the country. Iran has also retained roughly 70% of its pre-war missile stockpile, which is believed to be comprised of long-range ballistic and short-range cruise missiles.
All right, so this is bad news. And who's to say? I mean, the whole thing is like a show. Like, we have no idea, like, if any of this is real. But they've used a lot of missiles, so Trump has probably hit almost none of them. It's a big country, and who the fuck knows? Where they've been preparing this for a while. But if they have all these missiles, then the Strait of Hormuz is fucked, right? And Trump knows it. Like, he's been lying. Like, they know it. If the New York Times knows it, and this is true, and of course Trump lies about everything, he exaggerates the victory. It's a lot easier to hit a ship, right? And so they can hit all those ships, but they can't hit these missiles, which means that they can close the Strait of Hormuz forever. Like, with this, and they'll be getting more missiles and making more missiles, and China and Russia will get, whatever it is, right? Trump's desperately trying to get a deal with China to help open up the strait. Like, Trump was saying that Xi Jinping said he's going to help with the strait. Like, he's going to help with the strait. Another thing. Like, he can't get it open. Like, it's fucking. It's like one of those things. It's you wake up. These guys are waking up nights. Having nightmares about the Strait of Hormuz. These fucking dopey motherfuckers get sucked in this war by Israel, and Netanyahu hasn't been seen in like 2 months. Other than some AI bot, the AI Netanyahu. But Trump claiming these people are guilty of treason, because they're reporting that Iran has 70% of their missile capabilities. Like, that's what Trump is saying somewhere. Like he, I want to find hopefully they show the tweet or him saying this, but that's solely fucked, right?
The recent intelligence reports found Iran has restored access to 30 of the 33 missile sites it controls along the Strait of Hormuz, which could be used to target American warships and oil tankers transiting the strategic waterway. These findings directly contradict what Donald Trump and his cabinet have been saying for weeks now.
Their missiles are mostly decimated. They have probably 18, 19%, but not a lot by comparison to what they had.
So if he says 18, 19%, it means 70, right? Like, he's overestimating by 50%. And that's what Trump does. Anytime Trump gives you a percentage, we know from past times that it's always exaggerated in his favor, right? He's always, grifting. It's just a matter of how much in his favor. But 70%, they've already used. Well, how much they used? Let's say they used 15% of their missiles, in Israel and these other places. And they've done, whatever amount of destruction and, across the region. And America's taken out then another 15%. Like, it's not a lot, right? Like, it's not. And, America doesn't have, we're depleted. Like, our missiles are far depleted, more depleted than theirs because we've given so many to fucking the Ukraine and these things. So we're running low, which has been stated by J.D. Vance, that the Pentagon is underestimating or lying to the president about our missile capabilities. And so we don't have any missiles left. It's obvious that Trump doesn't want to get into a ground war. And if we did, it's a fucking, you're still going against, going against a big military with whatever armaments they have, right? So, this is a fucking nightmare. You can't get out. Like, you can't fucking get out of this thing, right? And you just can't lie your way out of this fucking thing, right?
Their missile launching capability has been substantially degraded.
Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed.
They have some missiles, but not very many. I think we're in very good shape.
He says, I think. You don't think about stuff like this, right? You know.
The ceasefire itself looking fragile, Donald Trump himself saying that it is, quote, on life support. The potential remains for a renewed combat phase in this conflict in which the U.S. military is now in a tough spot. New York Times reports this, quote, the U.S. military has already depleted its stocks of many critical munitions, yet the intelligence suggests that Iran retains considerable military capability, including around the vital Strait of Hormuz. If Trump ordered commanders to launch more strikes or take out or diminish those Iranian capabilities, then the U.S. military would have to dig even deeper into stocks of critical munitions, end quote. U.S. intelligence undercutting one of Donald Trump's goals for the war with Iran is where we start the hour. Retired U.S. Army brigadier.
Right, so let me find the exact quote where he accused these guys of treason. So here he is on the plane, Air Force One.
Very, very strong conviction. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
We're not going to have a nuclear weapon, never, ever, never, ever, forever, ever.
Not going to happen. No chance.
What would the use be of repeating the bombing? You did it for 38 days.
Well, no, we did.
And you did not get the political changes in Iran.
No, I had a total military victory. But the fake news, guys like you, write incorrectly. You're a fake guy. And guys
You're a fake guy.
like you write about it incorrectly. We had a total military victory. We knocked out their entire Navy. We knocked out their entire Air Force. We knocked out all of their anti-aircraft weaponry. We knocked out all of their radar. We knocked out all of their leaders, number one, and then we knocked out all of their leaders in the 2nd Division, and we knocked out numerous of their leaders in the 3rd Division, and they're very confused.
They're very confused over there. It's the best time to make a fucking long-lasting deal about nuclear weapons when they're fucking all confused. Right?
We've had a total victory, except by people like you that don't write the truth. You should write. I actually think it's sort of treasonous what you write, but you.
Okay, so it's treason would be punishable by death. But it's really treasonous to lie your way into a war, like for another country, like to betray your own country for Israel. Like that would be treason. And treason's a hard thing to get somebody on, but treason is not reporting something that is true that goes against what Trump is saying, right? That's kind of the job of the media. That's not treasonous, right?
In the New York Times and CNN, I would say, are the worst.
On another war.
You should know better. You're a professional. You know better. Your editors tell you what to write, and you write it. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Mr. President, another war. Is there any?
I actually think it's treason when you write like
they're doing well militarily, and they have no Navy, no Air Force, no anti-anything. By the way, we knocked out 85% of their manufacturing for the missiles.
See, that's what he's pissed about here, right?
We knocked out everything. We haven't knocked out other than one bridge that we did because they misbehaved. But we have bridges we could knock out. We could knock out their bridges and their electrical capacity within 2 days. We could knock out the whole thing. And then I read the New York Times and they act like they're doing well. And everybody knows it. That's why your subscribers are way down. You know, the Times subscribers are way down because it's fake news. Way down, way down.
Okay, so the majority of people who subscribe to the New York Times are not right-wing people. You know, the majority of people who are Trumpers didn't like the New York Times before Trump. They weren't people who read the New York Times. The people who already thought, like Trump's, you know, core supporters already thought CNN and New York Times was fake news. Like that's, you know, they weren't their audience base. Right, it's more liberal, you know, northeastern type of people, right? People who live in New York City, for example, where majority of them are Democrats. So this isn't about, you know, Trump. I mean, the mainstream media has taken a beating despite Trump, right? Just for years of, you know, all of it. Like we know that people get their news from the internet. So that has nothing to do with, you know, they are like whatever, fake news, whatever you would call them. Right, this term that's been developed. At first, fake news was conspiracy theorist stuff. Then Hillary Clinton coined the phrase, and Trump co-opted it because he made it about, you know, mainstream media. And so, you know, that isn't Fox. But, you know, the reality of the thing is he lies. He lies about fucking everything. And he exaggerates and he grifts. And he always tells you how great he's doing. And it's part of his, you know, his whole thing that he does, right? Deny, deflect, attack, you know, all these things. Never say you're sorry. Never admit defeat. Never admit that you made a mistake. Like he never owns up to anything. You know, whatever it is, this is what he does. And so calling it treason is certainly not treason because, you know, him coming out saying that they've destroyed Iran, then get the fuck out of there. Like, why are we still there? Why are we still there? You could just say, all right, we did all what we we're going to do, and we're going to leave. And fucking, you know, like you don't have to negotiate some deal. If Iran starts, if you find out they start building a nuclear weapon, you bomb them again. Like, but they're not, you know. I mean, you have to leave. It doesn't matter because, you know, there is no stable government there. You've put in a puppet government. We've already done that with fucking the Shah of Iran. That didn't last. It's not going to happen this time either, right? So, you know, like Iran has been waiting for this, preparing for this for a very long time. And so, like, you should just leave if we've won. Why the fuck are we still there, right? The Strait of Hormuz will open when you leave. And so you can just, I mean, it's clear to them that they should not build a nuclear weapon, which we all know that's all bullshit, right? And so you should get the fuck out of there. But, like, you know, you can't. So there's something else going on, right? You're losing some way. Like, you're not able to impose America's will despite all the stuff here.
Did you discuss Ukraine at all with President Xi? And is there any movement on that?
I did. We discussed, well, it's one that we'd like to see settled. Until last night, it was looking good, but they took a big hit last night. Yeah. So it's going to happen, but it's a shame. 25,000 people died last month. Yeah.
Admiral Cooper of CENTCOM was asked yesterday about the strike on the girls' school on the first day of the war.
Oh, it's under investigation.
All right, so there's that. But calling people traitors, like it's a fucking, I mean, that's a huge accusation. So I got a great meme about Trump coming up about the Jeffrey Epstein thing. Like he's just, I mean, I don't know what it takes for the dumb fuck Trumpers to realize he's fucked them. Like he promised something and he did the exact opposite. He pretended to be one of them and then clearly isn't. I don't know what it would take, if anything, for the dumb fuck Trumpers, because they're watching Fox News and they're oblivious to this stuff, and you know, at what point do they realize he fucked them? He fucked them more than anybody else. You know, when you betray, when a politician or a leader betrays, you know, their vision, It's their followers that they betray more than anybody else. Those are the ones who are loyal. Those are the ones who supported them. Those are the ones who invested in them, and then they thought he was going to be something. They promised to be something that he wasn't. And then when the grift unfurls, when the grift is exposed, they're the ones that get fucked, right? More than, he's going to, he's this toll of America. Like I've said, God wants America. Empires fall. Empires don't last, and they always erode from within. Division and the weakness of the people and moral weakness and entitlement and just unnatural behaviors and all this stuff. It just implodes. You see America's imploding, and global empire's imploding right now. And there's nothing that anybody can do to stop it because it's God's will. And Trump is just acting that out in the worst possible way as an unhinged ego, an unhinged demon, right? Okay. So this was dropped yesterday. I got stuff that I had on Twitter from being at home. And then I got all the stuff I was at the doctor's appointment, which I'll show you. Kash Patel did another fuck up. We'll get to that. Hopefully at the end of this, all these tweets and things, all this stuff on Twitter. But let's start here. So this is Uncle Sam will work for yuan, which is the Chinese currency, right?
Yeah. Turn the monitor up. The king is in the hole. Baby, run now. Baby, done. Check the rhyme, check the rhyme, check the crime. Hey, yo, baby, bye-bye. Tell the devil hi, hi. Yeah,
BB bye-bye. Tell the devil hi, hi. Iran has, shut off their internet. So their people have no idea what's going on. They're, whatever. They've got, control over their people. But they're pummeling Americans with the Trump administration with their propaganda stuff. They're burying the $100 bill.
And there's a ladder watching your power die. Baby, run. Where you gonna go, son? To the bunker, to the basement, you're officially outspun. From the Nissa to the exit, you're a political record. Even your shadow won't follow yet. We dissected your RIP on the TV. No more always me. Your government is crumbling like a low-budget CD. And look at Donnie T, the art of the deal. You're in Beijing, begging for a happy meal, bro.
You're in Beijing, begging for a happy meal. So, this is their thing. I don't know if there's any more here. Let's watch a little bit more.
Elon for the flex, but he's just a space hex. China's watching you like a toxic ex. You want chips with that, or just a global collapse? The petrodollar's flat falling through the gaps.
Oh, yeah, the petrodollar. So, the devaluation of the American currency. The petrodollar's taking a beating. And there's talk of some of these countries in the BRICS of no longer selling their oil like Russia and things for American dollar, which would, we've talked about that. I've talked about that for years. When the petrodollar collapses. So, the petrodollar came from there's the thing called, I think it's called Bretton Woods. And there was a meeting between the various European powers in America to make America the world reserve currency, the dollar. And Europe was getting NATO. Europe had fought so many wars, had been so warlike for years, and they wanted protection. And America was this big country with, hundreds of millions of people. And they were importing lots of poor people who would serve as, military slaves, and there would be America would be the military for Europe. And to reward for that, we would have a world reserve currency. But, France got destroyed in Vietnam, French Vietnamese food, right? They were there first. And they got, I don't know why they were there, but they got their asses kicked. And whatever that guy's name is, the airport in Paris is named after him. He was a leader. I think it was Charles de Gaulle, but I'm not sure. He didn't like what he saw when America went in, because he could see America could just print money and buy bullets and weapons, manufacture weapons, and was doing better than they did in Vietnam. And so he decided to pull all his gold from American they had French gold was stored in American banks. And so that was, the kind of the weakening of the world's reserve currency. And Henry Kissinger, who was, the guy under Nixon as the Secretary of State, he was one of the first political figures I knew about. He just had a heavy Russian accent, and he came up with this idea. He went to all these OPEC countries in the Middle East and said, look, you can sell oil for whatever you want. You can control the price of oil. But you have to sell it in American dollars. Don't sell it in any other currency. And so that was the petrodollar, which allowed, that everyone had to convert their money into dollars to buy oil, which was, kind of brilliant. But it was, a short-lived thing because it was Gaddafi went after the petrodollar. He was going to sell, the oil in a dinar, a gold dinar. It was going to be an Arabic coin, right? So that's, kind of the history of the petrodollar, and it's well known once that collapses, American dollar will be inflated and no longer necessary for the world, right? And then these other countries can dump their dollar if they want. They can sell off their dollars. I think China has like $1 trillion, right? They could just dump it, and get rid of their holding, like they hold it like a stock. These other countries, and so they dump it, and then it loses all value. And then next thing you know, you're paying $100 for a loaf of bread, right? So it's, the whole thing's fucked. And there's going to be hyperinflation at some point. It just happens. I mean, it'd be worse than a depression. And so, this is what they're making reference to. There's an economic aspect to these wars, and the Strait of Hormuz is being a big part of that, right?
We got the hard link, watching your whole legacy down the sink. Wear the shoes on a dragon with a fuel in a wagon while you're bragging and lagging, your economy sagging.
That's a good one there. There with the petrodollar, right? The petrodollar here, and it's like sinking, and in the middle of this, it's got an anchor to it, and because of the cost of this war. Like it's obvious that Trump's losing because they can't get a fucking deal, whatever deal he wants, and and I think it involves. I know he's trying to get a piece of the pie for himself. He wants some of he wants to control some of the Iranian oil to get a commission for, just he's such a grifting piece of shit, right?
Unfair, mapping your coordinates with the deadly stare. No more USD, it's a ghost currency. Welcome to the funeral of your Western supremacy. We don't need your permission, we got the intuition, sending your new world order to a total demolition.
They've clicked into these, they understand the sayings, like they have studied the truth community, using the term New World Order and all of it, right? So, people who, this is, like, some of this stuff's sophisticated. I talked about how North Korea, which I knew nothing about other than what was told on the news about how bad they were, what, totalitarian dictatorship it was, totalitarian dictatorship, and the rest of it, right? But, I don't know, it's like 2012, they put out a truther video that just nailed all the things that we believe in the truth community. Like, they clearly were watching, and these countries are watching. And they know that there is an element in America who are people who are, some people are paranoid and crazy, but the majority of us are reasonable people and are, more intelligent and awake and aware than the average person, right? People who just want to stick their head in the sand. And they're really, working that angle. And, people are realizing truthers are right. Like, I talked about how people came up to my wife to talk about Pizzagate after Jeffrey Epstein came out. Like, the mainstream media is admitting now they're Jeffrey Epstein people, right? Like, not really, but they're, embracing it because it's Trump's downfall. So this is how bad this is. Like, it's, more and more people are they're becoming disillusioned with the American lies, right? The Israeli lies. And you can't put that bottle back in the box. And these memes and stuff are just coming out.
Be run, nah, be done. Be run, nah, be done. Be done, nah. Be VIP, no VIP, just a DOA. Tell the Fed to print some more tissues, cause you got big, big issues.
The beast is you. All right. The beast is you. All right. There's that. Saddam Hussein, so damn insane, right? So now we're going to go through all these various memes from Trump. And I got to pull up all the ones from, these are things from just yesterday that I had at home. It's like yesterday morning. So here's Trump. Apparently Xi Jinping got up to go to the bathroom or something. And Trump peeked through his stuff. So he gets up to go. Trump gives him applause. And then he peeks through his fucking... It's written in Chinese, dumbass. Oh, it's written in Chinese. I thought it was going to... You don't read anyway, you fucking dyslexic fuck, right? You know?
No to the American flag. No to the American flag.
The way he's twirling around all gauge. You know, AI is now being used for, all this kind of stuff. I mean, there's so many of these things out there now. I'm going to show you a bunch of them today.
Ugh, come on. It's not budging. Why won't you open? Almost got it. Just open.
Come on! Why won't you budge? This is ridiculous! Just open, you stubborn thing! I can't!
Come on. Why won't you open? More strength! Yes, finally!
All right, so that's just from yesterday. And I got a shit ton of these memes. I want to talk more about this whole Achilles thing. There's some I'm not going to show you. Some of them were kind of racist, and there's you got this big movie that's going to be released. But let me go pull all those things up. I got about 7 or 8 of them. Tonight I identify as a Spartan. So this is a 300, right? So there was, I think I got 3 or 4 of these, and there's probably about 20. It gets redundant. Rambo, The Surgery, Part 2. John Wick. There was a movie there was a miniseries about the Odyssey, and it starred, I think, this guy, Armand Asante. I'm not sure what his nationality is, but it might be Greek. He was a sort of famous actor. And, it's this epic story, right? Then there's another movie called Troy, and it starred Brad Pitt in the role of Achilles. Achilles was supposed to be dunked in indestructible liquid, but his mom held him by his ankle, and so everything but his Achilles, right? It's funny because Achilles, there's been a lot of players of sports that their Achilles are rupturing. It's a brutal injury. It used to be a career-ending injury. They've gotten better at fixing it. But the Achilles has happened in the NBA and the NFL multiple times in the past couple of years to significant players, right? But there was this thing called, there was these 2 epics, and it's an action adventure with sexual undertones. There's a lot of it suits well for a kind of an epic, right? It's a kind of movie that a lot of Republican-based people might watch. It's a sort of a guy's action adventure. It's more masculine movie, right? And so, when you make an epic movie like this, where it costs a lot of money, high budget, you got a big cast and all the rest of it, they've been making this for a while. Christopher Nolan, it's supposed to be a big release. You can't become political and go after, there's more right-wing sort of sports playing, male energy in this kind of movie. You know, it's not some romantic, oh, we're going after the liberal audience. And so you self-sabotage by casting Ellen Page, Elliot Page, like you just do. Like, there is a historic condition where people feel like they're born in the wrong body. It's always been there, right? And, I attribute to what we call some scaras, past life things, impressions from past lives. People are born with some scaras in their life is molded by past, deeds and actions and thoughts and things. And that's why, having a good, clean, healthy internal world is so important, because all the problems you have in this life are going to continue on in your next life. You're screwing over some future version of yourself. You have to pay for your mistakes, in this life, but also in next life. And so if there's some confusion, there's some, psychological issues, some kind of unresolved stuff from your previous gender in a past life, it'll be resolved in this life. And there's all these gay people and people with, who are transgender. A lot of that has to do with past life stuff, right? And so I have compassion for anybody born with issues, because it's a torturous life. If you felt like you were the wrong sex, and again, this is not all these bandwagoners and people are jumping on this because it was cool, 5 years ago, all this stuff. But pushing this on the American people like it's normal was a mistake, because there's a natural element to this that's going to rebel against it. And so Ellen Page was a small woman. Like, she was not fucking Ellen Page wasn't somebody who would be a good warrior or whatever, right? Like, she wasn't in any action movies or anything like that. So, I don't know why you would make Ellen Page Achilles if that's the case, and why you would withhold that information. Like, Ellen Page can't talk about her part. Other people, you can see their part. I showed you this, in my last video. So, now the internet is savaging this whole idea of Ellen Page being, and it's going to undercut this whole movie. It's already got tons of bad publicity. It's the kind of thing, if you were thinking about going to see it, and you were like a right-wing Republican person, and anybody in truth community, there are people who might want to see this movie because it's an epic, and they're like, fuck that, I'm not watching this, this propaganda. So it's like really bad decision making, just horrible. Like, trying to politically recast something. It's, it should be with people who look like they're Greek. I mean, Brad Pitt was not some big macho, he's kind of a feminine, girly man. And he's, they're comparing Elliot Page to, like this whole thing, right? So the things you just saw were things that I pulled up when I was in the waiting room. I was scrolling through Twitter for like 10 minutes. And those were there's like 4 more of them I'm not even showing you. And then there's all these ones with Trump. I destroyed the Soviet Union. I destroyed the United States. Marco Polo. I don't know. Here he is, the art of the kneel. And he's kissing his feet. And he's shining his shoes. So, and there's more of these. So, there's just all these things. This is just scrolling through Twitter. I mean, the reaction was overwhelming that Donald Trump they couldn't believe how much ass kissing he was doing over there. And, that was brutal. But then all these things. And then, here, let me show you this one. So the caption to this was all these evangelical leaders here.
Praise Donald Jesus Trump. Praise Donald Jesus Trump. Oh, yeah.
And drinks the Kool-Aid. I would want to say there are a lot of dumb fuck Trumpers out there who still are supporting this. They just won't admit they fucked them. And that's going to be whatever it is. But, you can start to see, remember when Trump went out and the Cubies were in total disarray, the QAnon people. they're so obnoxious and so full of themselves and so arrogant about all these things. And yet, when everything started to go down with, the election, and they realized these 10,000 sealed indictments that were supposed to go after the swamp and all that shit weren't going to happen, and Trump lost, and the way he bailed on everybody on January 6th. Remember, he sent all these people up to the Capitol, and then they went south, and he didn't do anything, couldn't stop them. And then a few days later, he first he condemned them, and then he condemned them again. Of course, he's pardoned them now, but that was, after he 100% bailed on him. And the QAnon people were like, fucking, they were scrambling, and they were falling apart. They couldn't believe that the whole Q thing was a fucking joke. And, they went into hiding, and they've come back out to some extent, but not like they used to be. Like they've been humbled and humiliated. And that's how Trumpers are. Like, they're not, you don't see people being so proud of their Trump stuff. Of course, we know about TPUSK and the rest of it. That's all imploded. They're not as sure of themselves. They're not as cocky. They still won't admit that he fucked them. But, so that was just my Twitter stuff. I'll scroll through more, and there'll be more today. I don't know how much I'll show you, but it's clear that, again, if you click on one thing, they're going to show you more of the same thing. But Twitter is just full of memes about Trump, and he's imploding. Okay, so this just popped.
King Xerxes offers his respect, Mom. All he asks is that Sparta kneels a simple bow and your people will be spared.
Don't call me ma'am.
My apologies, miss. Xerxes is generous. He only wants your loyalty. Surely even a delicate thing like yourself can understand that.
I said don't fucking misgender me!
Ma'am, calm down. No need to get emotional.
It is sir!
All right, that's a famous scene, but for whatever reason, the guy stood right in front of this giant hole just to be kicked out. In the 300, but in this one, Elliot Page doesn't pack the. Elliot Page stars in Fight Club. This is brutal. I mean, Elliot Page is not having a big career. Ellen Page had quite an extensive IMDb page, but Elliot Page has basically voiceovers. But Christopher Nolan decided to do this, and this is Elliot Page is getting rung up. So, I could probably find 100 more of these if I just kept on scrolling. Scar tits. I'm just scrolling through Twitter. It's raining outside. I got a couple other things I want to show you here. But I'm just scrolling through scar tits. I don't think it's going to top scar tits. Okay, there's two more. The Incredible Hulk. There's, and then this one. Okay, so this is how Achilles dies in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey.
She, her!
The mispronounce, what do they call that thing? Misgendered is not that, but the pronouns. She used the wrong pronouns. He did. And now she's dead. That's her weakness. So let's move on here. The Department of Homeland Security.
With a controversial plan to transform industrial warehouses into immigration detention centers. Two people briefed on the discussions told the Post that DHS is preparing to award contracts to oversee construction and operations at warehouses it's acquired in Texas. ICE staffers are also exploring what work can be done at a warehouse in Maryland. In an emailed statement to the Post, a DHS spokesperson wrote that the department is, quote, reviewing agency policies and proposals put in place before Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin took over the position from Kristi Noem. So, John, I mean...
All right, so, Jesus, Mika, could you fucking... Are you going just out now, just full ghoul? You've given up, right? What's happened? You've given up trying to hide. Anyways, you know, they have these Walmarts, these Costco's, these warehouse stores, right? And they're set up to be military bases. You know, they can land helicopters in the parking lot, even planes at big parking lots, and, you know, they're just secure locations. They have resources there. You know, if an army goes in and takes over a Walmart, they have all the food and the stuff that they need, you know. I mean, it's already set up. And, you know, there's also the idea of FEMA camp stuff, right? And so, you know, if the government starts buying up warehouses with the idea that they're going to put illegal immigrants in there, and then it comes out, you know, years later they become FEMA camps, right? So, I mean, these are just things that are out there as a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but, you know, you always have to be suspicious when the government... We have these massive data centers and all the shit that's going up. The whole data center thing, I haven't really covered that, but they're buying up land and using up electricity and water. And they're going up everywhere in a way that doesn't make sense. Like, we don't need that much, you know, in terms of these data centers. Massive. Some of them are, you know, they're whole cities and the size of cities, right? And so, you know, and then with the robot population, all the rest of it. And so that's the first thing. Okay, so Kash Patel is fucked up again.
FBI Director Kash Patel is facing a fresh wave of scrutiny over a new excursion while on official FBI business when he was in Hawaii last summer. The Associated Press is now reporting that Patel took part in what government officials described as a VIP snorkel around a Pearl Harbor memorial in an outing coordinated by the military. It was revealed in government emails obtained by the Associated Press and occurred in one of this country's most sacred memorial sites. The AP reports this with few exceptions, snorkeling and diving are off limits around the USS Arizona. The battleship, now a military cemetery reachable only by boat, has stood as one of the nation's most hallowed sites since Japan bombed and sank it in 1941. Marine archaeologists and crews from the National Park Service make occasional dives at the memorial to survey the conditions of the wreck. Other dives have been conducted, I should say, to enter the remains of Arizona survivors who wanted to rest eternally with their former shipmates. Now, the snorkeling session happened one day after Patel stopped in Washington to open the FBI's first standalone office in New Zealand. Patel's tenure leading the nation's top law enforcement agency.
All right, so, you know, I mean, this happened during the summer, and it wasn't Kash Patel's idea. He just ended up being a part of it. And, you know, now it's like, well, why are you desecrating this fucking weird sacred thing that I don't know what the fuck you celebrate the sinking of this ship, right? I mean, the atomic bomb and all the other shit that came afterwards, there's nothing fucking sacred there, right? The guy just can't fucking, I mean, not step on this dick, right? And, you know, he's just so fucking... And I would say it's purposeful, but, like, it doesn't add enough of a distraction. I mean, just this general incompetence surrounding Trump. And so, you know, I mean, I guess this could be intentional, or I just think they're just fucking losers. I don't know. And they can't get out of their own way. We'll see how this ends up for him, but, you know, he can't be... I mean, they're going to have to fire him at some point, right? Like, this guy's not, you know, serving his full term. Okay, I think this will be the last clip. I'm going to do a little voiceover, get this video out. Well, here, it speaks for itself.
President Trump is on his way home from Beijing, where he met with Chinese leader Xi Jinping for a second straight day. Today, their one-on-one time included a stroll through the compound of China's Communist Party. But it was aboard Air Force One just a short time ago that the president delivered news that's sure to rattle Taiwan. He says he and President Xi discussed a pending multi-billion-dollar U.S. arms deal to the self-governing island, which China claims as its territory. Listen.
We discussed the Taiwan, The whole thing with the arms sales was in great detail, actually. And I'll be making decisions. But you know, I think the last thing we need right now is a war. That's 9,500 miles away. I think that's the last thing we need. We're doing very well.
Would the US defend Taiwan if it came to it?
I don't want to say that. I'm not going to say that. There's only one person that knows that. You know who it is? Me. I'm the only.
I mean, I'm not telling you guys. I mean, I'm not telling any of my Joint Chiefs of Staff or any of my fucking, integral people in the government that needs to know that kind of shit. Just me. All the guys knows is me. And I'm not saying shit, right?
Person. That question was asked to me today by President Xi. I said, I don't talk about those.
He asked you today.
He asked you if you would send troops, if you would. He asked me if I defend them. I said, I don't talk about that.
All right, let's go live right now to CNN's Julia Benbrook over at the White House. Julia, how significant are the president's comments on Taiwan?
Potentially very significant. President Donald
They could be very significant, or they could mean nothing at all. It's a wide range.
Trump did not go into a lot of detail here, but what he did say, what he didn't say, both lead to a lot of questions.
Questions. There's more questions.
This is following that summit with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and Trump said that he did not make a commitment either way on Taiwan when it comes to the arms sale.
So I almost know nothing about Taiwan. I know I'm not sure if that's the place where is that Hong Kong? I don't even know. There's some islands off of there where the original government is in control, the original royalty or something. I don't know. Maybe that's not even right. But I know it's some of contention, and and it's only America that's preventing China from grabbing and glomming onto Taiwan. And Trump didn't do anything to stop Israel from annexing Gaza. So he's not about any of those things, right? So chances are he doesn't want to get involved with that. And after he did with Iran, he really doesn't have the moral high ground and the capacity to, whatever. We'll see how it all goes down. World War III is coming one way or another. But, that's this piece of shit. Okay, so there's something I want to talk about, and it completely slipped my mind. Hopefully I'll remember. Maybe it's not important. Who knows? But the one thing that's good about being older is that you realize how fucked up things have gotten, right? So, if you go back to like village-based people, not the village people, but village people, or tribal people, when more modern, more so-called sophisticated, more technologically superior people interacted with these down-to-earth farmers or tribal members, people who are living more naturally human lives. The other people smelled, right? Like smelled bad, and just their whole lifestyle. They were gross, these things. And you can see it when you start living more healthy lives and you smell something like Tide detergent on somebody's clothes or whatever it might be. Some of you guys use that kind of stuff. And you can really smell it. It's like so fake and chemically. And, things that maybe you put up with when you were a kid and didn't bother you. And then when you get older and you move away and do more natural things. Perfumes. My wife and I were somewhere, I don't know, some girl had like heavy duty perfume on that, like was making us sick. It was so, I don't know what the fuck it was, right? And, to people who are gross, the way I was back when I was drinking, using drugs and didn't know any better. Same thing with foods. Foods I used to eat when I was a kid or when I was in college would make me sick now, right? So, this world's so toxic. And, my generation, the older generation would look at my generation and shake their head and couldn't believe, how much we'd fallen, what the morality was, whatever. Things that, they grew up with, which were forbidden, were now just openly being done. And then, of course, now when we see something like Elliot Page, who is, a former girl actress that's 5'4", starring in some sort of action movie, right? It's just batshit crazy. Or just Trump every day just coming out and lying. And the thing about it is when you go from a perspective of what can I get away with, you have Trump out there and these other people. What can I get away with? Bill Clinton was a big one with that. He sort of set a template that Trump and others have followed. What can I legally get away with? Trump had a team of lawyers all the time trying to find loopholes. What can I legally do? Finding ways to take an advantage of a loophole or something, right? And when you live your life as what can I get away with, instead of holding yourself accountable to be moral, to have good character qualities, then you just negatively affect the world, and you're a bad example, and it makes other people have to cheat as well. When you cheat, then everybody cheats, right? Like when people are manipulative and do all these kind of you remember the first Survivor show? There was one tribe they thought it was about surviving, and there's another tribe that realized it was about alliances. Manipulation, alliances, and then all those reality TV shows all became about that. Alliances and manipulation and double dealing and backstabbing and things. That's why that Traitor show is such a great show, because it's a psychological exercise and it shows you how abusive power is, how it works. With one group of people, the traitors have an advantage over the so-called faithfuls. People who are lying and cheating have an unfair advantage over people who won't do that. It forces everybody to get into those kind of behaviors. And if you're like so selfish you don't give a shit about being a piece of shit and how it affects everybody else, then the whole world becomes degraded, and that's what we've seen happen. And so those of us who are older can see how fucked things are right now. And like we were so much worse than previous generations, and so as bad as they thought we were, like they couldn't even conceive of the bullshit that's going on now, right? The right wing that's supposed to be about tradition and these things that we make America great again. Trump is the most degraded president we ever have, and they're just pushing for him to, go ahead, lie and cheat, be a demon. I mean, they know he's a demon, but he's their demon, right? And he's not even on their side. They think he is, right? It's just fucking batshit crazy. Well, anyways, just a couple of comments to get to here. Somebody wrote, Trump is not the AC. Pray about it, and then the shot is not the mark of the beast. What the fuck, bro? You've been told, but you won't listen. Like, hey, crazy fuck. So I think he means the Antichrist. I'm just going to throw that out there, but I don't have any idea. I think He-Man might be gay. So I don't know if I said Trump was the Antichrist jokingly or whatever. I don't believe in that shit. But anyways, the mark of the beast and any of that other stuff. But, Trump is not the AC. Pray about it. And the shot is not the mark of the beast. What the fuck, bro? You've been told, but you won't listen. Like, I mean, there's a lot of crazy people out there, and that's just a crazy comment. Like, your inability to read your comment back to yourself and say, oh, that sounds like a crazy person, right? It's if you're addressing me in some way, I mean, you would timestamp the video and you would say something like, this is what you said or whatever. And I don't know, like, because I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and don't really want to. So there's a bunch of stuff about He-Man. When I said He-Man might be gay, one person said, by the power of gay skull. And then somebody else said something about that He-Man is long been a gay icon. So I said He-Man was a gay icon. I just copy and pasted that person's part of their comment. An AI overview, which is Gemini. He-Man is widely recognized as a gay icon. Since the 1980s, the franchise has been embraced by the LGBTQ community for its hyper-masculine aesthetics, double identities, campy dialogue, and homoerotic undertones, securing its place in pop culture as a queer-coded staple. The camp of homoeroticism, the camp and homoeroticism in the original He-Man and Masters of the Universe series stem from a unique combination of toy design and animation culture. The eagle aesthetics, the barbarian archetype, was created with an international broadness to appeal to multiple demographics, resulting in stacked, muscular figures wearing outfits highly reminiscent of S&M and leather subcultures. You know, I mean, I always knew it was kind of gay, but I didn't know this was. I had no idea. The animation staff, the animation studio of Filmation, employed many openly gay men, and much of the voice acting, writing over the top character dynamics were infused with gay sensibility. Prince Adam dropped his cowardly act and transformed into He-Man. This is double lives with fabulous secret powers. Fabulous secret powers. It was frequently interpreted as a metaphor for coming out of the closets and shedding a disguised persona. Cultural legacy. Over the decades, He-Man's status as a queer icon has been acknowledged by both fans and industry insiders. The connection between the character and the LGBTQ community is firmly established. You know, I had no idea about any of this when I made the video. I was just joking around because, you know, I mean, it is pretty gay. Like Skeletor's dynamics, the dramatic tension between He-Man and Skeletor, and their intense rivalry is frequently discussed in queer medium criticism. The reboot influences the lasting LGBTQ fan base and perceived homoerotic subtext of the original show helped pave the way for modern, diverse, and overtly queer inclusions in recent reboots, such as those overseen by showrunners Ned Stevenson. Meme culture. The iconic What's Going remix, He-Man singing the Four Non-Blonde song, cemented the character's internet legacy as fabulous, queer-friendly camp icon. I'm not sure what camp icon means, but I'm sure it's something. For a deep dive into the absurd history of the franchise and how it inadvertently birthed a massive queer fan base. Well, not if they had openly gay people who were doing the animation and voiceovers and shit, right? Like, that was intentional. You know, there's a picture of him, like, he's so gay. Like, he's just there. Like, he's gayer than Ken. I mean, Ken's gay, but not as gay as He-Man. There's so much of this stuff. If you go back and watch, like, I was just recently watching some Star Wars clips. You know what's a really gay movie? Is Roadhouse, which is a lot of these rednecks and a lot of these Republican Christian dudes think it's a great movie. But Patrick Swayze, I'm pretty sure he died of AIDS. They call it the cancer, but he was in that movie where he played a drag queen. And he was so gay in, Dirty Dancing, these other movies, but it's certainly in that movie with the Roadhouse. The fight scenes are so gay. If you go back and watch it with the idea that, hey, I think this is pretty gay, it's like really gay. But, they've been doing this for a while. Like, they've been putting this stuff out there and kids were lapping it up, right? So, that's He-Man. You talk about gaslighting, and there was a basketball game where the Cleveland Cavaliers, one of the players fouled a Detroit Piston, obvious foul with 1.3 seconds left. And the guy would have shot 2 foul shots to win the game. You just had to hit one. And they didn't call the foul. And then the ref came out and said, no, there was no foul. And then the league said there was no foul. But everyone who saw it knows there's a fucking foul, right? It's just gaslighting. Denying what's obvious. And, Trump does it. Everybody fucking does it. Everybody lies about shit, whatever it is. Like, people just do it. It's second nature. But, in all that, there's this, this idea that stuff you've been groomed for years for what they're doing now. Like, this is something that the elite culture is really into. They're really into, all the gender stuff, all the gay stuff. And they've slowly rolled it out. I talked about how a lot of the things that are rolled out now were part of the modeling industry and some of these other things. Like, the pronouns have been around for a while. We just didn't hear about them. Like, we're hearing about it for the first time, but this has been a subculture. And then they roll it out, and they're like, hey, they're trying to get their stuff out, just like everybody else, the stuff with Israel. Everybody's trying to get to normalize their weird behaviors, right? Like, all these different power groups. Everyone wants everyone to think like they think and embrace their culture and their religion, their bullshit. And they've discovered ways of winning people over and wearing them down and making things normal. And, the new normal is fucked. Like, the new normal when I was a kid, was normal for me was like, was an abomination to the older generations, right? It was like it was shocking to them. And then for us, when we see these younger generations, and they think, oh, you're just old fashioned, and we're like, no, you're just fucked in the head. You have no idea. You're just fucked in the head. All right, so let's let's wrap that up there. I guess I'll call this video that. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.